Today on Art Matters with Mr. Morris, depth. Da 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 da. Woo! Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Woo! Da 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 da. Art Matters with Mr. Morris. Yeah. Get ready because I'm about to throw a whole lot of information at you. But remember, you can always press the pause button and review things. Depth. In order for us to understand that, first we need to understand what foreground, middle ground, and background are. So, without further ado, let's start up a video on that. Foreground, the middle, background. Foreground, the middle, background. Foreground, the middle, background, background. Foreground, the middle, background. Things that appear to be real close are the foreground, the middle, background. Things that start at the base of the picture are the foreground, the middle, background. When something you know is usually small, now appears as big as a cow. Foreground, the middle, background. That's the foreground, the middle, background. When something starts in the middle, that's the midground, the middle, background. When something's right behind the subject, that's the midground, the middle, background. When it looks like it is farther away, but you know you can walk there just today. Foreground, the middle, background. That's the midground, middle, background. You see, depth in artwork helps us so. It shows the viewer where things go. Things start big, real up close, but as they move away, they fade like a ghost. Our subject can live in the foreground here, or it can live in the middle ground, not so near. It shrinks down if it's far away. Lines converge as they move away. Foreground, the middle, background. Foreground, the middle, background. When things start up high or are the sky, that's the background, the middle, background. When big things are looking very small, that's the background, the middle, background. When the subject acts like a big road sign, covering up with all of its lines. Foreground, the middle, background. That's the background, the middle, background. Now you know a bit more about depth for your artwork. Middle, background. Overlap things to show depth in your artwork. The middle, background. But if you mix them up, your artwork will fail, 'cause you got all catty-wampus with the scale. Foreground, the middle, background. In your artwork, show depth in your artwork. Foreground, the middle, background. Now that I've got that song permanently stuck in your head, we're going to go over what the actual rules are for showing depth in our artwork. So here you can see we have 6 basic rules on how to show depth in artwork, and I'm going to take you through each one of them very quickly. All right, so first, overlapping. Overlapping is extremely important to show depth. By overlapping objects in your composition or your artwork, what it does is it shows the viewer something is behind something else. Obviously, if something is blocking the view of something else, that means it's in front of that. So here, for instance, you can see the park bench is in the foreground along with the shoreline. Those are blocking the pond.
The pond, well, it's not really blocking anything, but you kind of get an idea that the pond is farther away than the park bench, and it's still closer to us than the shoreline. I'll explain why that is in a moment. Next, you see that those trees are clearly in front of the woods that are way off in the distance. We know that those woods are way off in the distance because of another one of our rules on depth that we're going to cover in just a moment. So, to recap, make sure that you are using overlapping shapes and objects in your art. Objects that are closer to us appear lower in the picture. So for instance, the tree that's in the foreground, well, our brains tell us it's in the foreground, but our logic as artists says because the roots of that tree in the foreground are very close. In fact, they go past the bottom of the picture itself. Because the tree starts there, that means that the entire tree is closer to us than anything else. If you look at the second tree that's behind it, though, now first off, overlapping is telling us that it's behind it. But the second part is that its roots start higher up in the picture. The bushes past that start even higher. The barn starts even higher. Now, like many rules, there's usually an opposite. And the opposite in this case is that if an object starts up higher, it's farther away. So if it starts off closer, it'll be lower. If it starts farther away, it'll be higher. Another great example of this is that you see these screws laying on this table. Overlapping is telling us a little bit about how deep in the image goes. But the other thing that's really showing us is the screws that are closer appear lower on the picture. The screws that are farther away are higher on the picture. When objects are close, they appear larger, and when they're farther away, they appear smaller. This girl is not bigger than an entire volcano, but from our perspective, from where we are viewing this image, we're seeing that the girl is close, so she takes up most of the image. The volcano may be huge, but it's so far away that it appears smaller. The same thing happens here. We know the Lego figure is very small, the cow is very large, but because it's closer to us, it appears larger than the cow that is farther from us. This is actually a special effect called forced perspective, and it's used in a lot of different things, including fun houses and movies. Depth lines converge. What this really means is imagine the railroad tracks as lines, and you'll see that the lines at the very base are farther apart than they are as they go farther away from us. Those lines are eventually lining up and they're combining together where the image is getting too small for us to see any further. So the lines that represent the depth in that railroad track, they converge as they move further away from us. Rule 5 should be a no-brainer. It's using perspective. If you know how to use perspective, you should be using it in your images whenever possible to show depth. In these buildings, you can see that these vertical lines of depth that start up at the top, they converge, and that can all be represented best through using what you know of one-point perspective than to try to freehand draw something like this, in which case a lot of your balconies, different things, your angles will be off. Our last rule is pretty simple again. Use layers. In this image, you see that the foreground is a layer. You'll see that the bird itself is a layer. You'll see that the mountain or the mound behind the bird is another layer. You'll see that the water is yet another layer. And you'll last see that the city that's way off in the background, it's another layer along with, I almost forgot, the sky itself, which would be the very back layer. Each one of these layers helps create depth in this image and gives the viewer a sense of spatial depth. But Mr. Morris, what does this have to do with our project? Well, today, for your artwork, I want you to name a place. Next, you're going to name a subject. In other words, what is the picture actually about? After that, you're going to write down what may be in the foreground, the middle ground, and the background in that image. You're going to create 8 thumbnail sketches of your image, and you're going to create one hand sketch based off of your best thumbnail sketch. Last, you're going to create a shaded half a sheet drawing of your hand sketch. Now, one thing I do want to emphasize, it is important in this project to show depth. I should see some sense of depth in your thumbnails, in your hand sketch, and in the final drawing. As always, I look forward to seeing what it is that you create for this project today. My artists, until next time, please remember, be kind to yourself and keep on making art. I'm Mr. Morris. Have a great day.